Bem, nesse segundo momento, ainda a entrevista com o ex-secretário de Defesa, Donald Rumsfeld, ele, na verdade, vai agora fazer uma série de relatos e de reflexões sobre o que nós poderíamos entender, chamar de a reação ao 11 de setembro. Como é que o próprio secretário de Defesa, como é que, enfim, o governo, o corpo de governo dos Estados Unidos na época, começou a reagir a esse impacto tão grande e tão inédito, por que não dizer, que é o que a gente vai poder observar na sequência.
So you went to war in Afghanistan. Almost 10 years later, your assessment of the way the Pentagon went to war in Afghanistan is satisfactory? Not?
Well, the Pentagon didn't go to war. The United States of America went to war, and with a large coalition. President Bush and his team put together a 90-nation coalition on the war on terror, and several dozen countries participated in the effort against the Taliban and the Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan. It was enormously successful. The cooperation between the intelligence people and our special operations people going in and working with the Northern Alliance forces that had been in a civil war against the Taliban for years and not getting anywhere. We went in and provided supplies, brought in air power, Navy and Air Force air power, and laser targeting. And the effect was that in a matter of weeks, the Kabul was taken. The Northern Alliance did what they hadn't been able to do for years, and reestablished a country without the Taliban ruling the country. Taliban was a particularly vicious regime. They were using the soccer stadiums to cut off people's heads instead of play soccer. And only 3 countries in the world recognized the Taliban as a legitimate government of...
it was Pakistan, Iran, and
somebody else. I'm trying to think. I'm not sure. I know Pakistan was one of the 3. But it was a good thing that they were removed from power, and the Al-Qaeda was pushed out, and it was done very successfully.
Before that, 4 days after September 11, on September 15th, at a meeting in Camp David, your Deputy Secretary of Defense, Paul Wolfowitz, according to your book, floated for the first time the possibility of war in Iraq. What was your reaction if you didn't know that he was going to say so before?
I didn't know he was going to say it. I don't know that you're correct. I don't think he did talk about war in Iraq. I think he raised the question of Iraq and whether or not something should be done about Iraq. The reason he raised it, I assume, is the reason anyone would raise it. Number one, Iraq was one of the 2 or 3 countries in the world that was happy that we were attacked on September 11th, and their comments, Saddam Hussein's comments, were negative, not condolences. Second, Iraq is the only country in the world that was shooting at United States airplanes on a regular basis, on a daily basis. Over 2,000 times they'd fired on U.S. and British aircraft who were patrolling the northern and southern no-fly zones at the request of the United Nations. So Iraq was constantly shooting at our aircraft. Third, Iraq was giving $25,000 rewards to the parents of suicide bombers if they went out and killed innocent people and then were killed. So the subject of Iraq, but Iraq wasn't the only country that was raised. And any number of countries were raised as to countries that might conceivably have been involved or might be housing terrorists.
I would like to ask you to be upfront with the American people. Why did you lie to get us into a war that was not necessary and that has caused these kinds of casualties? Why?
Well, first of all, I haven't lied. I did not lie then. Colin Powell didn't lie. The president spent weeks and weeks with the Central Intelligence people. And he went to the American people and made a presentation. I'm not in the intelligence business. They gave the world their honest opinion. It appears that there were not weapons of mass destruction there.
You said you knew where they were.
I did not. I said I knew where suspect sites were, and we were just...
You said you knew where they were, near Tikrit, near Baghdad, and north, east, south, and west of there. Those are your words.
My words were that... No, wait a minute. Let him stay 1 second. Just a second.
This is America, huh? Go ahead.
The intelligence that everyone looked at and everyone agreed with was that there were a brutal dictator in Iraq who refused to cooperate with the United Nations, had rebuffed 17 UN resolutions, had chemical and biological weapons and a nuclear program, had used chemical weapons against his own people, had used chemical weapons against the Iranians, and had stockpiles which he would not allow the UN inspectors to determine whether or not they were still there. This was looked at by members of the Congress in both parties. It was looked at by foreign intelligence agencies. Everyone agreed. There was no dissent that I know of. And it turned out that the stockpiles were not there after the major combat operations were completed. What was there, according to the Delfer report, a former UN inspector, there were the people who knew how to do it and had been doing it in the past. There were the precursors that would enable them to do it. There were the dual-use facilities. And the combination of those three things would enable them to have stockpiles within a matter of weeks. So the difference between whether or not they found stockpiles or whether or not Saddam Hussein had the ability to have stockpiles within a matter of weeks is very minor difference.
However, took you to war.
The president made a decision that the risk was such, and he went to the Congress, and he went to other countries, and a large number of other countries agreed. And as you point out, some countries didn't agree. I mean, France and Germany did not, but a large number of European countries did, and other countries in the world.
Do you regret it?
Oh, you know, I think the president made with the information he had, I think he made the right decision, and I think the world's a better place with Saddam Hussein gone. One of the byproducts of this, interestingly, or the side effects, Gaddafi, when Saddam Hussein was captured, he pulled out of that spider hole, and then tried and convicted and executed by the Iraqi people. Gaddafi in Libya took a look at it and said, I do not want to be another Saddam Hussein. And he called in the West, said, look, I've got a nuclear program. It's well advanced. I'm going to stop it. You come in, dismantle it, take the parts away, and I'm not going to be subject to the same thing that Saddam Hussein was. Think of what's going on in Africa today. It's a better place.
But then leave me alone to terrorize my own people for...
It's a better place without nuclear weapons. With Gaddafi.
Yes. Well, it's hard to argue that for the Libyans, to the Libyans. I mean, they are under the boot.
Well, he's been there for 40 years. He's not a good leader. There's no question about that.
Without wanting to making this the central point, I mean, he gives some, stays in power, and
he was never threatened to not be in power until recently, when the people are revolting, and that's a good thing. They're tired of having him there.
You have war going on in Afghanistan.
Yes.
You have a pretty clear sense of what you want to do. You want to strike those who struck you hard all over the place. And then you start another war in Iraq that ended up being a long and protracted war. Was it wise for this group of very capable and hawkish people in the Bush administration to divide themselves into two fronts?
Well, you say very hawkish people. First of all, I wouldn't characterize the president as hawkish.
Would you characterize yourself as hawkish?
Oh my goodness, no. You go to my website, rumsfeld.com, and I sent the president a memo early on about the use of military force and the care that needs to be exercised. And I'm fully aware of the dangers of war and the ugliness of it. Certainly not. But I mean, the president's the one who made the decision, and to suggest that he's hawkish, I think, is unfair. And I think the world's a better place as a result of having the brutal regime in Iraq gone and the Taliban gone in Afghanistan.
What was your reaction when you heard that Osama bin Laden had been killed?
And I was relieved that the face of terror and the face of Al-Qaeda and an important fundraiser and recruiter and planner was off the face of the earth. The world's a better place with him gone.
Were you surprised that he was near the capital of Pakistan?
No. It's not unusual for people to hide in plain sight.
Is the United States a safer place today?
Well, my goodness, of course it is. We haven't had a successful attack in America in 10 years. It's an enormous accomplishment. And it is unquestionably a safer place. Now, are there dangers? You bet.
Thanks to you, in part, you think?
Oh, I'm not going to get into thanks to me or thanks to this person or that person. It's just a fact. It is a safer place. And when you think about it, the American people are able to get up in the morning and go where they want and say what they want and do what they want, and that's a blessing. And they've not been terrorized, and I think that's important. The goal of terrorists is to alter behavior, and our behavior has not been altered, and that's a success.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Back to work.